What if I told you that sometimes the most frightening things in the world aren't monsters at all? What if the real magic isn't in spells or enchantments, but in something much simpler, something like kindness? This is the story of a girl named Belle, a mysterious beast, and a rose that held the power to change everything. Once upon a time, in a cheerful little village, nestled between rolling green hills, there lived a girl named Belle. She had curious brown eyes, a warm smile, and a heart full of dreams. Belle lived with her father, Maurice, in a cozy cottage at the edge of the village. Maurice was an inventor, a brilliant, kind man whose workshop was always filled with gears and gadgets and wonderful contraptions that whirred and clicked and sometimes exploded in clouds of colorful smoke. But more than anything in the world, Belle loved books. She would spend hours in the village bookshop, reading tales of faraway lands, daring adventures, and magical creatures. When she read, she could be anywhere, climbing mountains, sailing ships, discovering hidden treasures. There must be more than this village life, Belle would whisper to herself, gazing at the hills beyond her window. Somewhere out there, adventure is waiting. She had no idea how soon that adventure would find her. One autumn morning, Maurice prepared to journey to the next town to present his newest invention at a fair. "I'll be back in 3 days, my dear," he promised, kissing Belle on the forehead. "And I'll bring you something special. What would you like?" Belle thought for a moment. "A rose, Papa. Just a single, perfect rose." Maurice smiled, climbed onto his horse, and rode away down the winding forest path. But Maurice never made it to the fair. As night fell, the forest grew dark and twisted. A terrible storm rolled and rain lashing down, thunder crashing, lightning splitting the sky. Maurice lost his way completely. And then, through the trees, he saw it. A castle, enormous and ancient, with towers that disappeared into the stormy clouds. Its iron gates stood open, as if waiting for him. Desperate for shelter, Maurice rode through the gates and into the castle's courtyard. He tied up his horse and pushed open the heavy front door. "Hello?" he called out. "Is anyone here?" The castle was silent, but it wasn't empty. Maurice found a fire crackling in the hearth, a table set with warm food, and a comfortable chair that seemed to invite him to rest. Too tired and cold to question his luck, he ate, warmed himself by the fire, and fell fast asleep. When morning came, Maurice explored the castle grounds, and there, in a beautiful garden sheltered from the storm, he found the most magnificent roses he had ever seen blooming in every color imaginable, even in the cold autumn air. He thought of Belle. "Just one rose," she had asked. "Just one." Maurice reached out and gently plucked a single red rose from its stem, and that's when he heard it. A roar so loud it shook the very stones beneath his feet. Before we discover what Maurice has awakened in that enchanted garden, if you're enjoying this story, why not hit that subscribe button and ring the bell? That way, you'll never miss a fairy tale. Now, let's find out what happens next. Maurice spun around, and his heart nearly stopped. There, standing before him, was a creature unlike anything he had ever seen. It was enormous, towering over him like a shadow come to life. It had the body of a man, but was covered in thick, dark fur. Great curving horns rose from its head, and his eyes burned with anger. "You dare steal from me?" the beast growled, his voice like thunder. "I gave you shelter. I gave you food. And you repay me by taking my roses? Please," Maurice stammered, trembling. "I meant no harm. It was only a gift for my daughter." "Your daughter?" The beast's eyes flickered with something, perhaps curiosity, perhaps something else. "Then she must come here in your place. She will stay in my castle forever." When Maurice returned home and told Belle what had happened, she didn't hesitate for even a moment. "Then I will go," she said quietly, her chin held high. "No," Maurice cried. "Belle, you can't. He's a monster." "I won't let you suffer for bringing me a rose, Papa." Belle hugged her father tightly. "I'll be all right, I promise." And so Belle journeyed through the dark forest until she reached the towering castle. Her heart pounded as she stepped through the gates, but she did not run away. The beast was waiting for her in the great hall. Up close, he was even more frightening than she had imagined. But Belle noticed something her father hadn't mentioned. Beneath all that fur and those fearsome horns, the beast looked sad, deeply, terribly sad. "You came," the beast said, sounding almost surprised. "I keep my promises," Belle replied, her voice steady even though her hands were shaking. The beast led her to a beautiful room in the castle's tower. It had soft blankets, a warm fireplace, and Belle gasped an entire wall of books. Hundreds and hundreds of books. "This is your room," the beast said gruffly. "You may go anywhere in the castle you wish. Anywhere except the West Wing. You must never go there." Before Belle could ask why, he was gone, his heavy footsteps echoing down the corridor. Days passed, then weeks. At first, Belle was lonely and afraid, but slowly, something began to change. The beast was gruff and awkward, but he wasn't cruel. He began joining Belle for meals, sitting across from her at the long dining table. At first, they sat in silence, but then Belle started talking about her books, and to her surprise, the beast listened, really listened. "Tell me about the story you're reading," he would ask, his deep voice softer than before. And Belle would describe the adventures in her books, the heroes, the journeys, the happy endings, and the beast would lean forward, hanging on every word, like a child hearing a bedtime story. One evening, after Belle finished telling a story about a brave knight, the beast was quiet for a long moment. "No one has ever talked to me like this," he said quietly. "Like I was. Normal." Belle looked at him, really looked at him, past the fur and the horns and the frightening size, and she saw it clearly now. He wasn't a monster. He was just lonely, just like she had been, back in her village, dreaming of something more. "What happened to you?" she asked gently. The beast sighed, a sound so heavy it seemed to carry years of sadness. "I was not always like this," he said. "Once, I was a prince, but I was selfish and unkind. I turned away an old woman who came to my door seeking shelter, simply because she was poor and plain." He paused, his great paws trembling. "But she was no ordinary woman. She was an enchantress. She cursed me to live as a beast, to look on the outside the way I had acted on the inside. Is there no way to break the curse?" Belle whispered. The beast led her to the West Wing, the forbidden place. And there, in a room draped in shadows, Belle saw it. A single rose floating beneath the glass dome. It glowed with soft light, but many of its petals had already fallen. "The enchantress left me this rose," the beast said. "If I can learn to love another and earn their love in return, before the last petal falls, the curse will be broken. But if not," he didn't finish. He didn't need to. Belle's heart ached for him. All this time, he had been trapped not just in this castle, but in his own loneliness, believing no one could ever care for him. From that night on, everything was different. Belle and the beast became true friends. They read books together in the library. They walked through the magical garden, where the roses bloomed even in winter. They laughed together, real warm laughter that echoed through the castle halls. The beast even learned to be gentle. He stopped roaring. He smiled more, and Belle began to see past his beastly form entirely. When she looked at him now, she didn't see a monster at all. She saw her friend. But then, one evening, Belle grew quiet. The beast found her gazing out the window, tears sliding down her cheeks. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice full of worry. "My father," Belle whispered. "I miss him so much. I'm afraid he thinks I'm lost forever." The beast was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he spoke. "Then you must go to him." Belle stared at him in shock. "But the curse, the rose. Your happiness matters more to me than any curse." The beast's voice cracked. "Go, be with your father. You are free." Belle hugged him, something she had never done before. The beast stood frozen, overwhelmed by the kindness. "I'll come back," she promised. "I will." Belle raced home and found her father ill with worry. She held him close and told him everything about the castle, about the curse, and about the beast who had become her dearest friend. But as the days passed, Belle couldn't stop thinking about the beast, all alone in that castle. And then, one night, she had a terrible dream. She saw the enchanted rose, its last petals trembling, and the beast lying still and silent in the garden. Belle woke with her heart pounding. She knew, deep in her soul, that something was wrong. She rode through the night, faster than she had ever ridden, until the castle appeared before her. She burst through the gates, calling his name. "Beast, where are you?" She found him in the rose garden, collapsed among the flowers. His breathing was shallow. His eyes were closed. "No, no, no!" Belle fell to her knees beside him, tears streaming down her face. "Please, wake up. Please. You can't leave me. I came back, just like I promised. I came back because..." She took his great paw in her hands. "Because I love you." The moment those words left her lips, something magical happened. Light burst from the enchanted rose, swirling around the beast like a golden whirlwind. The castle itself seemed to glow, its dark stones brightening, its broken towers mending. And the beast began to change. The fur melted away, the horns disappeared. And where the beast had been, a young man now lay kind-eyed and gentle-faced, blinking up at Belle in wonder. "Belle," he whispered, "you broke the curse. You saw who I truly was, even when I couldn't see it myself." Belle laughed through her tears, helping him to his feet. "I didn't see a beast," she said softly. "I saw my friend." The castle, once dark and gloomy, was now filled with warmth and light. Belle's father came to live with them, and the rose garden bloomed more beautifully than ever before. And Belle? She finally had everything she had ever dreamed of: adventure, love, and more books than she could read in a lifetime. But most importantly, she had learned the greatest lesson of all: that true beauty isn't about what you look like on the outside. It's about the kindness you carry in your heart. And they lived happily, with full hearts and endless stories, for the rest of their days. The end. Thank you so much for listening to today's fairy tale. I hope Belle and the Beast story reminded you that kindness can change everything. If you'd like to hear more magical stories, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an adventure. Until next time, sweet dreams, little dreamers.